for you to have a high-performing team, you've got to get them involved from the get-go. It is very important that we share the ultimate goal or objective. And these are simple things that most of us know, but in the day-to-day, we tend to lose focus. But when you give the rationale or the vision of what that project assignment is all about, provide the necessary resources to your teams, I have seen that the teams do come through.
Welcome to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential as a leader. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. We want to thank the Cincinnati Podcast Studio for having us in for another very powerful conversation today. Our guest today is Sweta Joshi, the head of HR of AeroSystems. Sweta, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
So you and I were recently having some dialogues, and I was taking notes. We were in a conversation. I was taking notes, and I turned to you and said, please join me in our podcast studio, because what we just discussed is exactly the kind of conversation that our audience, our members, our community, our clients love to hear and learn from. So we're going to unpack some of that today as we're together. And we've known each other for many years now. I've been inspired by you in every discussion around the questions you ask, the things you think about. You make me better. So I appreciate you being here today.
I did not know I was doing that, but I'm so happy. I am hoping to walk out with a lot of nuggets, like I said, after today's conversation from you, because you inspire, I think, those kinds of thoughts and questions. So I don't believe it's just me.
Yeah. Well, it takes a partnership. This is a partnership. So one of the things that we love to think about is what are the individual team leaders and the individual learners that are with us, what's going on in their minds? And we'll bring out topics that are specifically addressing things we hope that our listeners, because you're providing us insights, they're sending us notes, they're asking us questions, they're providing details in surveys and various forms throughout our platform. And one of the things that we find right now are individuals who desperately want to learn what they can do to continue to enhance the way they lead their teams and the way they inspire their teams to be more functional, connected, and trustworthy. So I'd love to start there. Softball question around, like, what are you seeing as you are growing and expanding like never before inside your organization? And what have you experienced in the past that you're bringing with you in terms of team building, connection, and building trust throughout the organization?
I will lean into my over 22 years of experience. What I've seen, not just in my current role, but also in the past, is most companies, what we end up doing is when you have technical experts who have proven, demonstrated getting results, we end up placing them into leadership roles. And when I say leadership, it could be managing 2 people, 3 people, without providing them the tools and skill sets to be able to lead teams. Because people management is very different from, being an individual rock star.
Right.
And what, I've learned about leadership is 3-pronged approach or 3-phased approach, which is default, deliberation, and design. Most of us are operating from a very default phase, whereas what worked for me is going to work for others in my team. So I think a lot of companies, or most of the companies, go through this, where we forget that it's a different skill set, and we expect an individual rock star to provide the same results by leaning into their teams. And it's incumbent upon us to provide those behaviors or support system to them. I don't know if that answered your question, but to me, leadership is very simple, right? Like I said, it's default. Everyone, we're all running a million miles a minute. So we tend to default to my value set, my value ecosystem, which is maybe my value system is I need flexibility, right? Doesn't matter where I work from, but I will get you the results. But maybe for someone else, a very structured work environment works better. So it is leaning into their value set, value system, and what inspires them to deliver. Because at the end of the day, leadership is not getting results from yourself, but how do you get the team to be inspired and motivated to get what you need? So it's a different skill set. I controlled my destiny in the past, but now I have to depend on others to control not only mine, but the team's destiny.
I was just in a conversation with a individual who was trying to figure out how to help two directors go from being involved in doing everything, which they can't quite keep up with their roles, to you both have 5 and 7 direct reports. And how are you pushing down responsibility and decision authority, decision-making ability to those on your team? And like the conversation of these two directors are not quite connecting the dots that it's not all about them anymore. They don't have to be the doers. They're the word you used was designer, right? To then motivate those on the team to execute. But when I do that, I may not get the same result as if I did it myself. When I do that, I lose control. What do you share or feel about those statements?
So going back to, that let's say I became a leader because of my past performance as an individual contributor. Now, most high performers are a little bit of control individuals. They like control, right? And that's why they've been able to deliver the results that they have. Now, what we tend to lose when we become leaders is the control that we had. Okay. Now, I don't like the word delegation, but a lot of times as leaders, we don't delegate right from the beginning. We insert ourselves in the process, or because that's losing control. Right? What I have experienced with teams and working in teams is you've got to take a step back. Trust your teams to be able to deliver. There is no harm in checking in at different points, but for you to have a high-performing team, you've got to get them involved from the get-go. It is very important that we share the ultimate goal or objective. And these are simple things that most of us know, but in the day-to-day, we tend to lose focus. But when you give the rationale or the vision of what that project assignment is all about and provide the necessary resources to your teams, I have seen that the teams do come through. And regular check-ins are fine. It's not that you don't trust them. It needs to come in as an intent that I'm here to support you. So I'm checking in. Let me know if we're still on track or if we need to pivot or if you need anything else. Because more than often I've seen that when you assign projects to your teams, they're doing a lot in the background to make it work. But because there may be a gap in communicating, you tend to assume that probably it's not happening. So I tell people, just check in, right? Sometimes we need to take on the role as leaders of project managers because we have all these teams working together on different projects and they are comfortable in their own silos. So we need to step in and provide that bridge to cross-functional teams to be able to connect with each other. Once you set that precedence, I've seen that teams will then without hesitation, interact with one another. It's the initial push that they need. We're one big team. Let me step in, right? Whether it's HR working with finance working with supply chain, aftermarket, most people are unsure of whether I can go out and reach out to the other team. When you step in as a leader and say, yes, we're one team, let's collaborate, you will see that happening. I always say that, lean in with trust unless someone gives you a reason not to. And that has helped me personally, leading teams and working with individuals and helping them become high performers.
Yeah. So the comment you just made of leaning in with trust unless someone gives you a reason not to. How, if I'm listening and I'm like, gosh, not everyone is in what I would call a trustworthy culture. And people I have found who don't start with trust, there's a reason why they no longer do. I believe that all humans at some point started with trust. And then something eroded that and made them cautious and reserved and fearful to be some degree for some reason, whether that's something that's happened to them personally or whether that's something that's happened in the workplace time and time again, maybe not even in the exact employer they're with today. So how do we as leaders identify that if, this person's natural ability is to give trust unless someone gives them a reason not to, or these three people on our team don't start with trust? How do we get them to believe in others again and give that trust to their teams to mobilize others?
That's a very good question. I think it comes with experience, with the confidence over the years, and operating from a place of security and confidence, right? Because different people's motivations are different. For someone, it may be just earning a paycheck. For someone, it may be doing a fantastic job. So I think once you realize what motivates them or demotivates them, that's when you jump in. Maybe that individual who didn't have a good experience, and that's why they've lost trust in people. So it starts there. You've identified that person doesn't trust. So maybe leaning into what happened. And then it's not math. It's an art and a science, right? I say, provide them the coaching, the mentorship, right? Yes, this happened. It's good to be cautious, but let's not operate from a place of fear or insecurity constantly. Because I always say, when you are operating from a place of fear or insecurity, you're not realizing your own potential or your team's maximum potential. And it's okay to be cautious. We all are, what's the word? We all have our own experiences, and that's what has made us. But you can always get a step further. I don't know if that answered, but I always like to understand what is your motivation behind this.
Right. And it's such a key conversation to have because, TMI believes that everyone has some potential that's not unlocked yet. And how do we help them do that? So a lot of what we're learning and sharing on the Unconventional Leadership podcast are these topics of like, you know what? I do need to lean into what you just shared. And I'm going to try that this week. I'm going to try that this afternoon in a conversation. And providing the encouragement to go do that. Leadership is really a one-to-one sport. Like, yes, you have teams all over the world, but at the end of the day, there's humans that make that team. And each human is coming at their objectives, their goals with their own self. And we need to somehow align their selves to the work they're doing, to the work that we need them to maximize in the organization. And then typically what you find is the most genius work happens when the whole team is so connected because they all trust one another that they're able to do things they never thought possible in a lot of cases.
Absolutely.
Right? Do you, so share with me a little bit about your experience leading and motivating teams that are spread across oceans, not just state lines.
Mm-hmm.
What can you share that you've learned over your career about international leadership? And you just took on, if you can share a little bit about what RH AeroSystems is in the midst of with a major global addition and acquisition.
That's a good question. I feel like I've been fortunate enough to lead cross-border teams, not just at RH AeroSystems, but in the past as well. And I have always used this concept called appreciative inquiry, which I learned early on in my career. Basically, it's simple. It says focus and strengthen the high points of an individual, right? The strengths that we say. So strengthen the strengths of your individuals and see how they will maximize their potential. Forget about their weaknesses, right? For a minute, just set them aside and help them see what they can achieve. So that's truly helped me work with global teams. And it's not easy because when you're leading global teams, you don't have that face-to-face, right? But when you build that trust, I always go back to trust. When you build, it's my responsibility as a leader to build that trust before I can get that trust from the team. So the way I have done it is to provide support, encouragement, and confidence in my teams. You got this. Provide them the autonomy to make decisions for themselves. Use me as a second level check if you're making the right decisions, right? But you're here to do your job, which I have confidence that you can do. And I allow them to make mistakes. In my teams, we're going to make mistakes. Let's just learn from them and try and avoid doing them again. What are the guardrails we can put in to avoid them from happening in the future? When people hear these simple things, I have learned that it inspires them. Okay, I've got someone in my corner who is allowing me to make mistakes, who is giving me the autonomy to make decisions for the team, and the flexibility to learn my job the best I can. These simple things have helped me. I won't have any inspiring nuggets today because I keep going back to the simple concepts. And when you're dealing with cross-border teams, which are 7,000 miles away, that's what helps most. Regular check-ins and allowing them a forum to share what they have done rather than, hey, here are 10 projects for you. Right. That the first few months, it's a lot of work to build that trust with people, right? And then trust me, you will see the results come back. I don't know, again, if this helps.
Yeah, it's great. I'm when you just shared that and talking about the things they are getting done, not just the 15 things that are yet to be done. One of the things that we have found in our organization's use and implement, so we have implemented and use EOS. We've encouraged and have clients who have also, we've helped them go through the process of meeting the right implementer to implement EOS. And one of the things I believe that makes EOS so effective is it trains you on the skill of checking off the things you're getting accomplished. So I've referenced it on a couple other episodes, that what does that do? By checking off the things you're getting accomplished, you're starting to see the actual progress of the energy we're bringing to our work every day. And if we're always focused on the parking lot items that aren't yet getting accomplished and never addressing the to-dos that are, that can be a really taxing environment. right? It's an energy draining environment. Whereas if you track your to-dos and your deliverables and rocks that you're working towards accomplishing every quarter, all of a sudden it feels more celebratory.
Yes.
Quarter over quarter, we're celebrating. We know there's things yet to get accomplished, but there's actually a lot that we got accomplished this quarter. Like, ooh, I like this. I've had a team member recently in a meeting was like, I love the progress. You see the progress, even if they're problem statements that we're progressing and working around and figuring out, we're making progress. This is how a team should work and operate. So I love the focus on the accomplishment, not just on the other 113 things we haven't gotten done yet. I want to encourage you to reach out to us via LinkedIn. If you don't follow myself or our organization, Talent Magnet Institute, I encourage you to click follow, send me a LinkedIn invitation. Let's connect and take conversations to a next level.
And I've seen that when you act as a support system to your teams, they will come on their own and say, hey, these are the things that I didn't check off. They're in my radar. So please know that I'm working on them. These are real examples in my current role and in the past, where when I first saw one of my team members 10 years ago come back to me and say, hey, I know we've done all of this, but I also want you to know that it seems like I'm behind on this, but I'm working on this. These have been my challenges. And it was like a light bulb moment that went off. Wow, I didn't have to follow up. And she got back to me with what she's behind on.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, I'm not the expert. I don't know everything that probably you do. By happenstance, maybe I will. And, lean on my experience. But why don't you come with your expert opinion? And people love to hear that, at least in my opinion, that I'm willing to apologize, willing to say I'm not the expert in this. Because that's the core team that is going to show results. I've truly believed, and I say to my current teams and in the past, I don't need to be the spokesperson for you. I'll be your advocate. I don't need to be in the front seat because we're a team. If you sink, I sink. And if I don't look good, then again, it's my fault. That if I'm not looking good, I'm not helping you look good. And that has helped me in the past and now to get the teams motivated because they don't see me as someone sitting up top and just giving directions.
Yeah.
It's like, we're in this together.
Yeah. That's the key, one of the key lessons learned of the many nuggets that you're dropping in this conversation, that like building the trust to the point that we are all feeling as one changes everything.
Yes.
Like the goal of building the way that you're sharing with us to build trust should also feel like we're sitting on a team locked arms, rowing together, challenging one another together, openly sharing, hey, I know we just went through the 13 things we got accomplished. I know that I've got 2 things I really need to get done, and I'd like to carry that, and I'd like some accountability. I'm sharing it with you because I need you to hold me accountable to get that accomplished.
Yeah.
I'm not hiding from it because I'm afraid of what's going to be said. It's more safe if I go ahead and put out there, here are the things I have that I still yet need to get done. And oh, by the way, I know we got a lot accomplished as well. Like there's a different level of conversation. Some individuals watching may go, how do I create that environment for my team? Because today, that's not the culture of our company. Have you ever been in a scenario where you had to almost lay cover for the team, where it wasn't the culture of the company? But I'm going to ask that first. Have you ever been in that environment? And what extra steps did you have to take as a leader to start providing that culture to get your team at least moving in the right direction?
In the past, I did inherit a team where, it was sort of like that, where the team didn't feel that they were appreciated. Not at RH AeroSystems, but one of the companies in the past. It was close. The culture was close to toxic, where team members were pitted against each other. Right? It's very unfortunate, but that was the reality. And when I came in, people had very clearly said to me that we're looking for jobs. And I asked them just one thing. I said, give me a few months, give me a shot. It is on me to prove myself to you rather than the opposite. I had to come in and prove myself, build that trust, the credibility, let my team sit at the table and lead conversations. It took over, I would say, a good year for me to turn the culture of the team around. And in the backdrop, I was having conversations with, my peer leaders, my managers, that I am doing this and I need your support to come along with me. So it was a lot of conversations. It was a lot of rolling up the sleeves, jumping in, working with the team alongside. I don't like to be that hands-off leader. I'm not micromanaging, but I am here for whatever you need. You want me to review an Excel? I'm there. You want me to work on an Excel? I am there. So yes, I was there instead of taking the role of, okay, what was in the past was the past. We're a new team, blah, blah, blah. I told myself that, and the team, give me a shot. And if after 3-4 months you don't see things getting better, you are all experts in your fields and you will find jobs, but give me a shot. And I'm happy to say that I made it work somehow. I don't know if I fooled them, but yes, it was a lot of work though, because I had to prove myself to the team to better the culture.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel that culture is not just one person led. Yes, the leader at the seat guides and directs you. They also need to walk the talk, but you have to constantly be communicating, be inspiring. That's where, the 3-step process of leadership that I said, default, deliberation, and design. That's where design comes in.
Yeah.
You are walking the talk every single minute. Different strokes for different folks. That's where you're intentional. That's where you're uplifting people. That's the design phase.
Yeah.
That's the end phase of leadership.
Yeah. Walk through the deliberation a little bit more. What can you help us unpack with the word deliberation? Where do we need to deliberate? What does deliberation mean? Stalling decisions to move to design, or is deliberation really thinking through what the design needs to be? Can you just give me a little bit more insights on that?
Sure. So the default phase, like I said, is we're operating from what has worked for me as either an individual contributor or middle level. And so, again, I'm operating out of my value systems, right? Deliberate is when you realize that I need to change, but there's no organized or structured method of identifying and uncovering what inspires people, what works for my team. And I may be a leader that has 3 different functional teams, right? I may be leading IT, legal, HR. I need to lead them differently. So it's not only leading teams differently, but also individuals within those teams differently. Deliberate is not structured. It's, okay, I learned about servant leadership, or I learned about situational leadership. So I'm just going to pepper in those concepts. You're making an effort, but it's sparse. It's not consistent. That's how I see deliberate. But it's step in the right direction. Design is constant, regular, structured. intentional, where servant leadership may work well for one individual, but maybe more direct leadership, where giving instructions to someone may be better for this team or that individual. That's where the difference between deliberate and design comes in.
Okay.
Did that
Yeah, it's
make
very
sense?
helpful. Very helpful. Do you find in the midst of acquisition, transformation, the growth that you all are on at RH AeroSystems is incredible. I mean, the story, just every time I hear it, it blows my mind.
Thank you.
Congratulations to everyone at RH AeroSystems for where you are today and the great history that's led you to this moment in time. But boy, does it bring a lot of change, right? A lot of exciting change and good change. But share with us a little bit about the magnitude of how many facilities or employee count and how large you were and where you are now.
Sure.
To kind of define the level of change that we're describing.
So it's been very unique, and Dieter Moeller, our CEO, and Anthony Turner, our president, they have been instrumental and have put in a lot of work in where we are today. This is unique in the sense that we've acquired a company that was almost 3 times our size in terms of employee strength. And most of them are not in the US, right? We were in the past a very US headquartered company. Now it's more global. And that comes with its set of challenges, not only in terms of operational differences, but also cultural differences. So we're learning as we're growing on what works best for the team in Germany versus here in the US, what works best for teams in UAE, in the Middle East. I would say it's work in progress, but we've got the right people up in the leadership to guide and direct the now new leadership team that we're calling L1 that we've formed. I will say that it takes a lot of communication. And the word communication gets thrown out so much that I feel like it's lost its like essence.
Right.
Communication just doesn't mean, okay, this is what we want to do. Let's go do it, right? In my area, in my small HR space, what I constantly do is not only here are the projects that we need to do, here's how we integrate, but let's talk about what are the differences? Where do you see challenges, right? What is not going well? How can we make things better? And seek input from your teams on what they think best. Now, sometimes, you will agree to disagree, but then allowing them to give that feedback makes them feel empowered. And the way, I feel like it all goes back to simple concepts on not what you say, but how you say it. Because every individual, whether you're being acquired or you are the company acquiring, is operating from a place of fear, right? Whether it's a personal fear, you have a family to support, you're the only breadwinner, or whether you want to do a good job. When you put those fears to rest as a leader, you will see people will start communicating. You've provided them a safe space, right? And that's what my constant effort is, to provide a safe space for my teams to excel in what they do best. That's important. And that, again, it is constant conversations, communication, cross-functional. I always tend to think, okay, now we've got to hire, let's say, 10 more people over the next 6 months. It's not just an HR function, right? How do we get the business involved and have them feel accountable that this is truly for you? So let's sit together, let's brainstorm on what the best method is. So I'm always thinking, who needs to be involved in this? HR, the business teams, maybe the finance team from the budgeting perspective. Let us all get together and work together to find an outcome for whatever the problem statement may be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned communications as communications is not just telling something. It's not just saying, it's creating the openness and the dialogue for others to provide feedback around communications. So, you started out, communications kind of gets lost at times, but it is critical to any organization. Like the study of behavior and psychology and human connection is a big part of communications, right? The more we learn about others and about how to ask the right questions, create safe dialogue, we're getting better at communication skills. Are there any tools or recommendations you have to help those watching today, listening today, to improve, what are 3 or 5 things they could do to improve their communications and the impact communications has on others?
Now, let me ask you a question. Because communication can mean different things at different levels of leadership. So is your question around the top leadership, middle? Because my answer may differ.
Okay. Well, let's cover both.
Okay.
So let's talk about middle of the organization. I am in the middle of the organization. I'm responsible for function, and I need to communicate more effectively about what we need to do over the next 6 months to accomplish the goals. Are there things I can do or steps I can take to think about how I'm communicating so that I'm creating clarity and connection with those on my team?
If it's within your team, what has worked for me in the past is having quick 15-minute stand-ups, and not me personally standing and communicating, but letting the teams talk to each other, right? So let's say if I have a 10-member team, a quick 15-minute, doesn't have to be in person, it can be a quick Teams. Hey, what do we have going? And it can be either weekly, random, then the teams, will talk to each other. And sometimes one person says, oh, I did not know that you were doing this, right? Or I'm working with the IT team on this. Oh, then should we involve them? It's just the dialogue that you create. It's simple things. Sometimes using technology to your advantage, where you create maybe trackers and make it available to your peer functions for them to see on what's going on in your department. Because transparency also brings in accountability.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's simple things like that. And sometimes wearing the hat of a project manager and enabling those checkpoints in communication at the middle level, that helps. Again, it goes back to, have you created a space for your team not only to interact within the team, but also cross-functionally, right? Because human tendency typically is to work in structured environments, right? People want to have guardrails. They want to have instructions. And that's where I feel like in the corporate world, in my 22 years, that we could do a better job of providing those guardrails to employees, especially as you're seeing growth spurts. It's simple things. You can send out an email and make sure anyone that is involved in the project or is supporting or is expected to support is also in that email chain. And then you allow that group to just interact with one another.
So one of the hardest parts about podcasting is the moment you stop talking. I mean, think about it. The majority of the work that you probably put into creating a podcast is in the editing phase. So what if you didn't have to do the editing phase? Here at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio, we help you just come in and talk. We do all the rest. We have the cameras, we have the microphones, we have the lights, and then we have the editing tools to create the perfect content out of your podcast. Not only do you get the full podcast in video and audio, you also get short form content that you can use across all of your pages in social media. So if you want to learn more, go to CincinnatiPodcastStudio.com/tour to learn more and schedule your tour with us today.
I don't know. These are simple. I mean, that's worked for me.
Well, and I think you called a key point around every team needs other teams to understand where they need help and what they're trying to accomplish. Because without collaborative, cross-functional, positive relationship, there's very little movement most organizations can make.
Mm-hmm.
I led a team building session last year, and what I did is I had every function provide their goals. And then I had every function, I worked with their HR team. Like, let's have every function write down the things they hope to accomplish over the next 9 months. And then let's add a column. Who do I need to help support this in order to get it accomplished?
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone brought their goals to the session. So the HR lead, the head of HR, was really great. Her team about getting everyone to make sure we have the goals and then you got to fill out this other column of who all do you need to help you get this accomplished. And then we shared our goals. Each function shared our goals. And who do you need in this room, because every function's in the room, to help you get the goals accomplished. And they were amazed by sharing this publicly, how many of them needed each other. And what was ironic was how many of them had very similar goals.
Mm-hmm.
They had not shared this cross-functionally. They had never shared and displayed their goals with cross-functional teams. All of a sudden they do. And people are like, oh, well, I'm glad for example, the IT function. Almost every function in this organization needed IT in order to help them have their projects be successful. Every function had some level of operational support, had some level of people need and support from the HR function. I do believe this was the first time this organization had ever had this kind of open dialogue. And we still work with this team. We've worked with them for several years now. And this is just a part of their journey to learn how to be a more effective team.
Mm-hmm.
We've been working on individual plans, functional plans, how we communicate as individual operating units. And then this was the exercise to say, hey, and we all need each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it was like, wow, IT by the end of the day was kind of celebrating themselves. Like, everybody needs us. Yeah. Yes, we do. We all need one another. Right. So that's that ability to work cross-functionally, build trust. We all need one another.
Absolutely.
All of us need one another. Yeah. There may be some listening today that almost feel uncomfortable to go to another function and say, I need your help.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that is so true. I feel like either we feel that we will come across as someone that doesn't know what we're doing, or asking for help is seen as we can't do this by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it goes back to what's the type of culture have you created, right? I always say, raise your hand and ask for help. If you've tried everything that you could.
Sure.
And maybe there'll be something already in place, or it'll be a quick fix for another team rather than you reinventing the wheel. Ask for help, raise your hand. Again, unless you ask, you're not helping your team or the organization get better.
Yeah.
Because what someone else could have done within hours, you were trying to spend days in fixing it. And that's, in a way, impacting your own productivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, that is so true that you said. We all hesitate to ask for help.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know, but let me figure this out. Let's empower our people with those statements.
Yeah.
Let leaders say that. I don't know, but let's see how we can get this figured out or get the resources.
Yeah.
And I also ask my teams, when they say, oh, we need IT support or we need legal support, can you help with that? And I ask, why are you hesitating? Like, what's the bottleneck? Have you tried? And then all of a sudden a bulb goes off and it's like, okay, can I ask? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the key traits of creating an unconventional leadership culture is that I know this shouldn't sound profound, right? Like that's one of my dreams and hopes that one day this will no longer be profound. But many organizations have this challenge where it's like, well, if I ask for help, it's a sign of weakness. No, it's not. It's a sign of like collaboration, right? You have to, of course, you have to get help to get this accomplished. And I think back to the question when you asked, are we going to talk about management or the senior leadership? I'd like to segue into the senior leadership topic now around communications, because I do believe this starts as high up in the organization as possible, right? The C-suite sets the tone of what's acceptable and expected of working here in this organization. So, for example, a CEO can proclaim, we will be an organization of collaboration where we lead with trust, we lead with support, and we kind of wrap our arms together to accomplish more and greater outcomes than any organization could perform if they were trying to do it themselves and in their own little functional silos. So we can crash these barriers that we artificially have put in place, or we were trained and conditioned from the past company we came from to like, we don't ask for help because last time I did, something negative happened. I don't want to do that again. It's like touching the oven if it's hot. You don't want to do that again. I don't want to go there. So what can the C-suite, what can senior leadership do specifically with communications to help impact and enable greater performance and greater outcomes?
I think one is being as transparent as one can be, being authentic. Those are two different things, in my opinion. Being as authentic as one can be, providing, again, a safe space, because even at those executive levels, you do need to provide a safe space to your leaders to speak up and voice their opinions on what will work best, what won't. And in addition to all of that, words are important. Words are really important, but you've got to walk the talk. You have to follow up with your actions. You can say, I want a collaborative culture. I want A, B, and C. But if you are doing the exact opposite, then you're causing a culture of confusion. People hear, oh, she wants a collaborative environment, but then she's going and doing things on her own. And sometimes we may need to, right? Depending on the speed at which you need to move and things like that. But in general, if you don't follow through your words, you're not telling your people that this is truly who you are. It's going to cause more confusion. So I always say, no matter what your message is, whether you want to be a 24/7 company or you want a work-life balance, each company can have its own priorities, but you've got to, as leaders, show actions that support your words. That's, to me, a full circle communication. It's not just words, it's your actions too.
Your actions have to support your words.
Absolutely.
That's profound. That's profound for all of us, right? And I think it's worthy of asking the question of self, where might my actions not be supporting my words? It's also something I would encourage, if you are on a leadership team, that you ask this of your next leadership team meeting. That, hey, I was listening to this podcast that you all should check out, this Unconventional Leadership episode. Where are our actions possibly not matching up to our words? And what could we do to make that not be the case?
Mhm.
Make sure that we are aligning to what we say. And oh, by the way, we may not be the best judge of that question, right? I'm always amazed how leadership teams, senior leadership teams, there are members of that team who think their actions directly align to their words. And there are people inside some of those same leadership teams that are like, no, they're not. And you have this disconnect. And I always say, well, let's ask who the most important people in the room are, which are not any of us. It's all of our team members and our employees.
Mhm.
Let's get feedback. Let's listen to the feedback and not feel judged by the feedback, but say, all right, great. Thank you. That's exactly what we wanted to learn. So this whole level of communications transcends all levels of the org chart, right?
Absolutely.
And people need to provide. I recently had a leader tell me that when I was asking about culture and values, it was like, well, we have our values, which are our culture. And I asked the question, I have a question. Do you really believe that your stated values are the lived experiences of your team members? If so, congratulations, because a lot, that's not the case. And there were people on that same team, that same ELT, executive leadership team, that didn't fully align with that. And that's not abnormal.
Mhm.
I think it's something that like, wow, you know what? I did think that. And we should ask. We should get the feedback. So feedback in communications, how we communicate and how we open lines of communication up to open and transparent and honest feedback is critical part of leading great teams and great cultures.
Absolutely. And, when we talk about feedback, the one thing that I've noticed over several years is there's been a negative connotation around the word feedback. We tend to think that if I'm going to get feedback, it's always going to be negative. You didn't do this. You should have done this and that. Again, it's based on how you deliver it. We all can do things better. But my dad said a long time ago that why do we look at feedback as negative or positive? Feedback is always positive. And I was like, no, that's not true. You're telling me you can get better grades, which he never did, but, better grades in school. So that's negative feedback. And his point was, that's not negative feedback. I believe in you. I know your potential. So I'm telling you or sharing with you that you can do better. For some reason and somehow, this and it didn't stick with me at that time when I started working. Then it was like, yeah, if my manager is telling me that you can communicate better because she sees that I can do a better job of communicating better. So I had to pivot and think differently about the word feedback. And again, it goes back to leadership, right? Because we are the people that need to provide those tools to our teams. Feedback is not negative or positive. I mean, my dad is one extreme when he says it's all positive.
Right.
But I wouldn't be giving you feedback if I wasn't invested in you.
Right.
It goes back to simple, concepts at home. If I want my relationship with my husband better, I will tell him, hey, you didn't do this better. Can we work on this? Because I am invested in that relationship. I'm drawing a parallel at work. People where I see no scope for improvement, after a point, I will stop, right? I've done everything, given them the resources and stuff. But if the feedback is consistently the same, then you've got a different problem. But if you're getting different feedback at different points in your career career, then I say it's a good thing. How else do you improve?
Right. Yeah. Feedback truly is the adage, feedback is a gift.
Yeah.
Positive and negative. I love the thought that your father shared of like, it's really neutral to positive.
Mhm.
That if you're getting feedback, I know I experience this with youth sports with our own kids. Like your coach is giving you feedback because they believe that if you do something different, you'll get an even better result, right? Not they want you to get a worse result.
Yeah,
They're giving you feedback because they want you to get a better result.
absolutely.
There are individuals who just don't, in their natural rhythm, give feedback. What can you say to those of like, you know what, again, how do I check? Am I one of those? And if I don't give feedback enough, how do I start giving feedback? Where should that show up in my cadence and my rhythms with my team and my direct reports and my peers and colleagues? What does that look like?
If you're not giving feedback to your teams, it can be a combination of different things, right? Again, it goes back to what your definition of feedback is. So you're someone who thinks it's negative. You want to avoid conflict, right? You want to avoid any sort of confrontation. Maybe you don't have the confidence or in giving that feedback. You have a feeling, but you're not confident in how the other person will take it, or if your feedback is even accurate. So it can be a combination of different things, or you just assume that things are not getting done, so the person should know that they're not getting done. So that's your feedback, right? And the person in your team could be completely on a different level or plane. So those, in my opinion, could be some of the reasons why you're not giving feedback. How do you start giving feedback? It goes back to first, if you've not done it consistently, I would go back to a simple method of sitting down with your team member one-on-one and asking, what can I do to help your job? Or I am seeing these things that are not getting done, or I'm hearing from other teams that some things are being missed. Help me understand why, and how can we get you back on track?
That's really good.
It's, again, if you see as your teams that you want to invest in, I think for some people it comes naturally, and for some people it's the phased step of default deliberation and design, right? I say if you don't know something, you start by asking questions, right? And that's when you create that atmosphere of openness. And then feedback doesn't become that something you don't want to do. Because at the end of the year, when everyone's going through performance reviews, everyone's like trying to finish it because you don't want to give feedback, right? And what I have done in the past, and even now what I do is, instead of saying, oh, you could have done this better, I use words such as, I encourage you to focus on this particular project because I can see that by following these steps, you can accomplish it. That has a completely different impact than you didn't do this better, you didn't do this better, or that. Just the word, I've used those in my performance forums for my teams. I'm encouraging you, I'm empowering you, I'm enabling you. And I have seen a different result. And in one-on-ones too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The
did that help? Did that answer the question?
I think it helps. You'll have to let us know if it helps. I feel like part of what what if every organization shared the expectations of feedback with their employees, right? Like in an all-employee meeting and some phrases are town halls, where just being told that everyone is encouraged to provide feedback to one another that can help others go from where they are now to their next steps. And by the way, when you're giving feedback, try to deliver it in a way that you're helping them reach their full potential in what you see. So you may be giving feedback based on, I know that if you do this, this, and this, you will have even a greater outcome because that's just what's within you. I can see it. So what can I do to help you get there? Because I already see it. You're already there in my mind as the manager, right? As the leader. You're already there in my mind. And I know if we just make a few slight adjustments, here's what's going to happen. Here's what the greater outcome is. That's a conversation I see show up in sports, right? And I think there's a lot of correlation between how or sports and or extracurricular activities. And there's a lot of correlation. If we could bring some of that psychology into the workplace, naturally we'd all perform better because that's what we're always trying to do in any type of sporting environment. So if you haven't shared the expectations of feedback and communications inside your organization, it's a great place to start. Of here's what we expect here. Here's why we're doing it. Here's what we hope it helps us achieve. And here are steps to take. And again, hey, let's listen together to this episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast because there's some great framework that you just shared for our listeners and our community to take and implement. So thank you for doing that.
No problem at all. I hope it helps.
Yes. And we encourage those to how did it go? Right? What questions do you have that we may not have shared? What fears do you have of having this kind of conversation with your team, with an all organization, with those around you? We're here to help you respond to that. So send us a note and say hey, I want to do that, but here's what I'm afraid of an outcome being. How could I approach this? What could that look like? Or I did it and here's how well it went. And here's the new path that we're on, right? So those are always great outtakes for those to take back to their workplace. So thank you for being a part of this episode.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
And congratulations to everything you and your team at RH AeroSystems are accomplishing.
Again, it's all the business teams. We're just supporting them.
Yeah, it's great. So congratulations on that. And I want to thank you all for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. We do hope to hear from you. We want to hear your feedback. We want to see you share this episode. Pass it on inside your own organizational charts. Use this as a part of a resource to improve and enhance and unlock the potential within the teams that you lead. I want to thank the Cincinnati Podcast Studio for all they do each and every week to bring this conversation to you. And we look forward to seeing you next week.